Well, I apologize for being a little bit late. We had votes, so that always takes precedence. But thank you for waiting and letting me interject as the panel's been talking. I have the disadvantage of not hearing what you all have been saying, so you can swap me as I make a few remarks about my bill. But first, I want to thank Doug and American Action Network for hosting today's event and being so involved in this issue. We think it's incredibly important and appreciate your effort in putting this together and all the other great work that you guys do. So thank you for that. So quickly, I'm a guy from northern Wisconsin, a former lumberjack competitor. I did reality TV back in the day too. So the question I always get is, why the hell do you care about Puerto Rico? Why are you doing this bill? What is your interest? Which I sometimes find to be a little bit offensive because they're Americans. Just like I would care about a crisis in Minnesota or Michigan, my neighbors, or Texas or Florida, I so too care about a crisis that's brewing in Puerto Rico. And as I was looking at what was happening on the island last summer and looking around on who was engaging on the issue, Congressman Prelovisi was fully in, obviously. But I didn't see a lot of other members of Congress engaging in a debate that I thought we had to have in this institution to have a solution to help address the crisis. So I started working with my team, 8-9 months ago, trying to find solutions that could work for the island. And there's a lot of them, but we came down to a slim package or framework that we think we can get bipartisan buy-in. And I'll get to that in maybe just a little bit, but I think, first off, I'm sure you guys have been talking about this today, the problem on the island. I mean, here you've had decades of financial and economic mismanagement. We've seen this coming for years. The writing's been on the wall in Puerto Rico. We've had a global recession that has had a huge impact on the island. And then I think it's fair to say that Puerto Rico is not fairly treated by our federal government, which has caused some problems for them on the fiscal side. And so here you have the island facing a virtual economic collapse. And the problem is staggering. So we have $73 billion in debt, 12% unemployment, which is twice anywhere else on the mainland. You have labor participation that's 20 points less than anywhere else on the mainland. Half the population is living in poverty. Think about that, 50% of the population is living in poverty in Puerto Rico. And I think this is, for the long term, a huge problem that 1 in 10 residents have left the island in the last 10 years. I mean, this is the next generation of innovators, of doctors, of mechanics, of teachers, and they're leaving, and they're going somewhere else. And so if we want a bright future on the island, we have to have bright people staying on the island. And so I think without congressional action, you're going to see potentially, if you look at the doomsday scenarios out there, you're going to see energy shortages. You're seeing a consolidation of schools. And so you're going to see several education issues arise as the island tries to save money on education. And with 50% of the island living in poverty that looks to the government for health care, you're going to have a health care crisis as well on the island. And again, you're going to see more people, because there's a lack of opportunity, there's a lack of jobs, leaving the neighborhoods that they were born and raised in, the communities that they're familiar with, and leave their family and come to the mainland looking for opportunity. And as a side note for me, that's a big deal because in my own district, a lot of our small towns, you see people that want to stay in the community they were raised, there's not opportunity for them. And they have to leave, they have to go to, for us, they go to Chicago or Minneapolis or Milwaukee, some in New York, where they prefer to stay at home. And so if we can have solutions that allow people to stay in their communities, by their parents and their brothers and sisters, just from the human side, I think that's the right approach. And so if Congress doesn't act, I think you're going to see this issue burn on the nightly news. I think you're going to see a lot of press, cameras down in Puerto Rico, and not every American might be aware of the burning they're going to elevate this issue as well. And so you're going to have Americans who don't know this is going on, well aware of what's happening in Puerto Rico. And I think there's going to be a political movement to have a taxpayer bailout of Puerto Rico, which, as a conservative, I think is the wrong approach. I think bankruptcy should be the priority over a taxpayer bailout. And so that's why I think some people might actually want us to stall, so there's more pressure to have a bailout. I get that that's happening in some realms, but I got to tell you that's not going to pass this Congress. But if we don't want that to be our future, we have to act now and put up plans that can actually stave off the crisis, allow the island to address the debt. So first I'll talk about bankruptcy. In my framework, I put out a state-based Chapter 9 bankruptcy proposal, just like we have in Wisconsin, just like you have in Texas. So the municipalities and public corporations in Puerto Rico can file for bankruptcy just like they can in Wisconsin. But the general obligation bonds of Puerto Rico proper can't access bankruptcy, just like in Wisconsin or Illinois. So that's our framework. As many of you are probably aware, Treasury has put out a little different proposal where they ask for what they've been calling Super Chapter 9, allowing bankruptcy for the general obligation bonds. I just got to tell you, just reading the politics of this, that is not going to pass the House. I don't think it'll pass the Senate, because the argument is this is the tee-up for general obligation bankruptcy for Illinois, for California, for New York, and I don't think that is going to get through this House. Not only that, what happens in the bond market for all our municipalities if Congress is now changing the rules on bankruptcy for Puerto Rico? They see on the horizon they're going to change it for our states, and you're going to see municipalities and states pay more in the muni bond market to access capital. And so I think all of us will pay a price on the cost of borrowing if this is the act of Congress going with a Treasury style super Chapter 9. So my framework again is with a Chapter 9 bankruptcy like all our states have. A key component is also a financial stability board, and I know this has caused some real angst on the island. Folks will say, "Listen, I don't want to give up my control. I don't want someone else making decisions for me. I have elected representatives. I want them to make the decisions for us on the island." And I get that. But I would just give you some pushback. How well has that worked? It hasn't worked very well at all. So if you're going to get Chapter 9 bankruptcy or some debt restructuring, you're also going to have a financial stability board. And I think it's important that when we do a restructure the right way. We based our proposal off of what happened here in D.C. It's limited in time for 3 years, which I would argue probably is not enough, but we have the ability to extend it beyond that 3 years, focused on budgets, financial planning, and tax collection, which tax collection has been horrible on the island. And again, this is a framework that I think we want to have input from those on the island, but you're going to have some control and some say from a control board or a financial stability board if we're going to get the finances right on the island. And just, you guys all are here in D.C. It's tough sometimes to get the politics right to make tough decisions. And sometimes this kind of oversight council can make the tough decisions that the politicians have been unwilling to make. Well, I don't know if you followed Governor Scott Walker at all. That is far from his record in Wisconsin. We're paying down our debt there. But I think when you have governments that can't manage their finances, you have countries that can't manage their finances, the decisions become limited and very hard. And so that's not our scenario in Wisconsin. And I don't think the people of Wisconsin would let our government get to that point. So I don't think that's an issue that would come up for us. But we bring up a good question, which brings me to another point. I think it's wrong for Congress to jam this down the throats of the island. And that's why in my bill, I require a vote. Say, listen, you have to say, do you want Chapter 9 and some kind of fiscal stability board? You can say yes or no to it. If you don't want that, vote no. Don't take it. If you want it, you can say yes to it. But I think it empowers the island to chart their course in their future. But I would just ask you, has it worked? Have the tough decisions that have been necessary to be made on the island, have they been made? I would say, well, we wouldn't be here if they had been. But we went a little bit. If you want to talk after, I'd be happy to chat with you. Thank you.
So, of course, House Natural Resources Committee is working on legislation.
Yeah.
Are you working with them? Do you think the bill you proposed last year will be included in the bill that they will propose?
So we haven't, and I think everything is on the table. This is an information gathering time period. This is an idea cultivating time period. And so we've given our input and insight. Mr. Bishop is, I think, doing a great job talking to a lot of different people with a lot of different ideas. So we'll see how it turns out. But again, what I'm excited about is that we have so many people who care about the island and that are trying to make the right decision to bring opportunity and prosperity back for folks. And I would just argue, sometimes the easy answer is throw money at a problem. Just throw money and have people walk away. I think it's a little bit harder to say, how do we think through solutions that actually make people's lives brighter, to make an opportunity for better investment, which help families, help communities, help the next generation. And that takes a lot of time to think through it. And I'm proud of what our House has been doing right now, is really putting the time, space in to think about what kind of reform is necessary to have a bright Puerto Rican future. And that's a lot different than to say, throw money, which will give you a short-term band-aid to a problem, as opposed to thinking through the reform that brings opportunity and prosperity. So, thank you guys, and ladies, for letting me come. Doug, thank you for participating. Thank you for the panel for the great dialogue.